Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Mala and today we'll be talking about the books I read in April. I was in quite a slump this month again. I only read 7 books, but they were good reads. There were none that I actually hate. So I think overall this has been quite a good month for reading for me. Sometimes when I do these, I'm not sure if I'm supposed to give a review or a summary because it's just like books I read. So I don't really need to give a summary or a review, but I just tend to complain about books I don't really like. And then the books I like, I don't have much to say about it because no complaints, am I right? So let's get to it. Okay, so on to the first book. The first book I read this month is The House of Many Ways by Diana Wynne Jones. So for the past few months, I thought her name was Diane Wynne Jones for some reason, but no, it's Diana Wynne Jones. This is the third book in the House Moving Castle trilogy. On the back, it actually says it is a sequel to House Moving Castle, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, actually it's not even on the back, it's on the front, right there. The main character is Charmaine Baker. A lot of the characters think that she's saying charming, so I assume it's Charmaine. She is a young girl and she is tasked to look after her great uncle's house, and her great uncle is a wizard. So therefore, House of Many Ways, it's a magical house. So anyway, she is very sheltered. She doesn't do chores. All she does is read. She just really likes reading. Being away from her parents, she takes the opportunity to write into the royal library to work there because she wants to work with books. And there she meets Sophie because in the royal mansion there's money going missing. The princess hired Sophie to find something called the elf gift that will solve the problem, I guess. During her stay at the small cottage, an apprentice shows up, not knowing that the great uncle, the wizard, is sick. So basically the wizard is taken away for treatment. That's why Charmaine is looking after the house. So it's her and this guy called Peter and a dog at the cottage. And then at the mansion there is Sophie, there is the princess and the king. I didn't really like this. Charmaine's personality is basically Sophie, but way meaner. She is so annoying to read. She is so unlikable. For somebody who like to read, it's very funny how she just missed out on the instruction book that her uncle, the wizard, left her because she just refuses to read the instruction book. I don't understand. She's so rebellious. I guess it's because she's a child, she's a teenager. And with this setup, it's easier to develop her character. She straight up called Peter useless at one point when she was the one that wasn't doing much. But really a lot of this book is just figuring out how the house works because it's magical. For instance, to make food, you tap on the fireplace and says food. But it took them so long to figure that out, and then they clean the house, and really there's 2 plot lines going on, and I didn't care about the house plot line. It's very loosely tied to the missing money plot line. This book can easily just be in Sophie's point of view and nothing much will be changed. It'll be the same. It's just Charmaine is just very annoying as a main character, and it feels like she doesn't really do anything. She's just at the right place at the right time. I guess what I liked in this book is the villain or the monster, but the monster dies off screen. It's very unsatisfying. The monster dies and I'm like, well, this is the most terrifying thing that's ever introduced in the House Moving Castle series, and then it just dies so easily. I'm like, okay, sure. And also the only tie-in to the second book from this book is that the royal cook is just the royal cook from the other book. So you don't really need to read the second book if you wanna... I don't know, man, this trilogy is weird. I just didn't like this. I mean, I gave it a 3.5 stars, but from the way I'm trashing it, I really should just give it a 3. I cannot recommend this book. If you just like House Moving Castle, just read the first book and just end there. Because even though Sophie and Hal appear in this, they're already developed as characters. They don't grow, they're just the same. So just read House Moving Castle and just give this and the whole trilogy a pass, really. I said 3.5, but I'll just drop it down to a 3. Second book I read this month is The Library of Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. I bought this book and then I started reading it on the same day because I was on an hour car ride and I just couldn't put it down. It was just so good. I've heard other booktubers talk about this book, but whenever they recommend it, they don't really give a summary. So I didn't know anything when I went into this book. I just made it so much confusing. But yeah, I think it's the best experience if you go in blind. I'll try to give a summary of the main plot. Okay, so we follow Carolyn, yes. She was American once. Now she's a librarian in a sense, because it's a special library, of course. So father, she calls him father. It's basically like God, yes. It's split into 12 catalogs, so each of the siblings, she has 11 siblings, right? This is very hard to summarize. She has 11 siblings and they all learn from one catalog each. So you only specialize in that one catalog. Caroline is specialized in languages. So she can speak any language, even through like animals. So there are other catalogs like war, healing. So you only learn from that. So her siblings can't really speak. I wanted to say American, English, or any other languages, yes. One day, father just goes missing and then there's the whole trying to find out where he went. So that's the main plot, yes. I've seen a lot of reviews that said this was very confusing. But I think it's only confusing for the first 100 pages or so, because you don't know what's going on, but it's slowly revealed and then it's quite straightforward. Even though like weird things happen, but like it's easy to follow. Other than Carolyn, you also follow a perspective of an actual American named Steve. So it's very interesting to see his perspective of what these weird librarians are doing in real time, his reactions to it versus like Caroline's very nonchalant attitude to it because she is a librarian. Yeah, that's very interesting and entertaining. And it's also classified as horror because there's a lot of weird things going on. It's not horror as in ghost horror, but there is like killing and graphic descriptions of like blood and violence. So in a way that's the horror, and it's also the existential horror of, you know, God going missing and whatnot. It is a page turner, and also for some reason my copy is like 487 pages, but when I check on Goodreads, the others are like 300 plus. This edition came out this month. I don't know what's up with that. It's so thick. I recommend this book, even though I only gave it 4 stars. It means I liked it, but I really like this book. I just don't want to give things 5 stars. Okay, so next book I read this month is another Discworld book. It is Reaper Man. God, I kind of really like these covers. They really represent what the book is. I say that, but Death barely appears in this one. There is like, I think 3, actually mainly 2 storylines, and then like there's 2 in 1 and whatnot. Okay, so the summary of this is some higher being thinks that Death has too much personality after the first Death book. He has to go, so Death goes to live. He has a timer now. So he then goes away to a farm to live the rest of his life. So at the same time, because Death is gone, nothing dies. So things die, but they come back to life. So we follow this other wizard who lived for 130 years. His name is Windlepoons, and he finally dies, but then he comes back as a zombie. The whole unseen university, I think that's the wizard place, it's just in chaos. They're like, why are you dead? And they're like, you're undead. Try garlic and whatnot. Like, the wizards are so absurd. I can't deal with the wizards. The wizards are part of the other storyline that I really didn't like, because whenever the wizards come out, the jokes are so absurd, and I'm like, bro, please. I want more death in this. So yeah, Windlepoon's storyline of him dying and then he experiences life again as the undead, I think it's very heartwarming. I don't know how to say. It's just like he lives more than he lived when he was living because he is undead. I don't know how to explain it, but I like that storyline, and Death whole storyline. I loved it. I love Death. Death is such a good character, and the relationships he has with other characters too. I really like it. Yes, that's all I have to say about this. I just didn't like the wizards and the whole storyline about the shopping cart. Even though I liked Windlepoon's part of it, I didn't like whatever the wizards were doing. And I really like Death. Yeah, that's it. I gave it 4 stars anyway, because that's how much I liked the Death story. So it equals out from the wizard story. But yes, if there was more death, like even this represents the book. But I guess at the back it represents the wizard's story. I didn't realize that, but yes. I just don't like the wizards. 4 stars, 4 stars. Fourth book, yes. Fourth book I read is a short one. This one is Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. Over the Bones of the Dead by Olga Tokarczuk. It's a Polish author. It's been translated to English. In the UK, I think all of Olga Tokarczuk's works are with this kind of cover, this plain blue cover, but the US edition has like some art. So in this we follow Janina, an elderly woman who lives in a very remote small town that borders on Czechia. Yes. So she spends her winter days studying astrology. There's a lot of astrology in this. Translating poems of William Blake from English to Polish. That's where this title comes from. And taking care of the richer people's summer home. So in the winter, there are only 3 people in the village. One day, she finds her neighbor dead in the winter. So, you know, there's only 3 people. Then later on, there are more bodies discovered throughout the story. And then Janina thinks that she knows who did it. So she tries to insert herself into the investigation. That's the summary, yes. So yeah, we're in her head. And she's a very interesting old woman. She talks about astrology a lot. She tries to find out, like when the people died, she tries to find out their date of birth and time of birth and tries to do the star charts to find out their astrology and the rising sun and whatnot. I'm not into astrology, so there is a lot of description on that. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it's very interesting to read about, even though I skimmed through. She really prefers the company of animals to people. She's just a very interesting old woman, and it's very interesting to be in her head. And also, I kind of relate to her because I can see myself growing up like her. Because I really don't like a lot of people. I prefer animals. So yes, it's a very character-focused book, even though, you know, there is a murder mystery going on. Very about Janina, an eccentric 60-year-old woman, and her thoughts and perspectives on life and religion and people. And yes, so don't go in expecting like some very heavy plot, because more than half the book is just her going around her daily life and commenting on things. Plot happens like very sparsely, except in the last few pages because you gotta wrap it up. But I enjoyed this book. It's thought-provoking. Like usually when I read books, I don't really like save quotes because I don't feel like there are a lot of quotes to save, but this one has a lot of quotable moments. I'll just pull out some on the screen because I did not write down any, but yes. Very interesting book. I recommend. 4 stars. 4 stars because I don't want to give anything 5 stars. After reading a short book, I decided to read a long book. So this thick boy is Valour, which is the second book of The Faithful and the Fallen, book 2 by John Gwynne. So the sequel to Malice, so no summaries because it's spoilers for Malice, is understandably a better book than Malice because Malice took like 300 pages to set up all the characters and then the plot started moving. Then this one is like almost straight into the action. So that is nice, but also it's within the first 20 pages, it turns out my favorite character from Malice is now dead. So I was like, I almost dropped it. I'm like, what is the point? He was my favorite. But I continued. If you forget the characters, there is a cast of characters at the front of the book. So you can, refer while you read. It took me like 50 pages before I remembered all the other names. Also, there is a lot of death in this one. There is a lot of fighting in this one. There is so much action in this one. There are sieges, there are fighting pits, a lot of running away. John Gwynne's writing for action writing is very good, I think. It's descriptive but very easy to follow, because sometimes you read action scenes and you just want to skim through because you're like, what is going on? But this one's quite clear, and it's descriptive, and it's raw, and it's bloody. Also setups for romance in this one as well, and I enjoyed reading Corbin's point of view, since it's 2 years has passed since like the start of Malice, so he has grown as a character, as as a boy to a man. And so he's not as annoying to read anymore, and he's found his confidence. So yes, I appreciate that. A lot of people are reading John Gwynne nowadays because of his Shadow of the Gods. It's right here. I haven't read it yet because I want to finish the whole Faithful Have Fallen first. Apparently there's a sequel series that's set like a century after this series. But I'll just finish this and then read that. But this one was really good. This I gave a 4. I've already started reading Ruin, but it's taking a while. It's 4 stars. So the last book I read, can you guess what it is? Can you guess? The last book of the month. Can you guess what it is? It is an Ishiguro work, of course. It is Klara and the Sun by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's his latest book. It came out last year. And I got it at Sainsbury's. Even though I have another Ishiguro work, but I guess that's for next month. The summary of this. Oh, this is sci-fi, yes. This is sci-fi. So we follow Klara, who is an artificial friend, which is an AI, and you know, it's like Detroit Become Human, where they get sold at shops. Klara is very observational. She's very, very curious compared to her other models, I think. And then one day this sick girl comes in while she's at the window because they shuffle the models about, and then the sick girl sees her and be like, I promise you I'll be back for you. And then she does. She comes back for her. So Klara lives her life with this girl, Josie. Yes. So I think that's the main story that's really, yeah, it should hook you, maybe. Because I'm not going to say anything more. So even though it's an AI story, I think that's the thing about sci-fi, right? I'm not sure, I haven't read a lot of sci-fi, but it explored the human relationships from an outside perspective. Since you're in Klara's head and Klara is an AI, the way this reads is very simple because she has simple vocab, I guess. As in usual Ishiguro fashion, he drip feeds information about the world around you. There are points that Klara mentioned boxes and I was very confused, but apparently it's because when she sees things, they are in like boxes. So she describes the boxes. It took me a while to figure out, but that's pretty cool. Yeah, it makes me feel smart that I figured things out in his book. And unlike in Never Let Me Go, he kind of reveals everything at the end. This one is just ambiguous, really. I really like the human relationships in this. It shows off so much. It's all realistic. Like, I might not like it. There's one point where this conversation was so cringy, but it's believable. I don't know how to explain. I just really like this book. I don't want to spoil it. It was really good. Yes, I think this is my favorite Ishiguro work. I've read 4. And there are moments in the story where I think like the plot is very convenient. But overall, the relationships, the writing, the pain, 4 stars. It didn't make me cry. It's not that painful, but I felt bad for this AI. You would think after doing these videos for like 4 months, I'll be better at describing my thoughts about books, but I think because I do it only once a month, it all resets. It's just me rambling and it doesn't make any sense, but yes. So next month meaning, I always say the same word. This month, in May, there's an Asian readathon going on, so I'll be participating in that. There's only like 4 challenges, and I think I have a few books that can cover those challenges, so I'll put it up. So yes, mainly Asian books. I want to read this book right here though. This A Tale for the Time Being by Ruth Ozeki. Heard it's good. Covers the Asian readathon challenge and also The Sword of Kaigen. This is a thick boy. This is a standalone fantasy that's Asian inspired by a Chinese American writer, I think. So yes, I'll read this. This is very thick. This is very heavy. And yes, I said I would read classics last month. Hey, did I talk about Charlie? I think I've missed one book. Wait. Yeah, I missed one book. So it turns out I forgot that this was actually my first book of the month, so ignore all the other, like, now the order is all wrong. How did I forget about this book? I read this at the start of the month. This is Flowers for Algernon by Daniel Keyes. Great, widely acclaimed. This is a sci-fi book. Man, even the blurb doesn't even explain what goes on. So it's about this boy named Charlie can't really call him a boy. He's 32 years old. He has very low IQ. He thinks that if he has a higher IQ, he will make more friends and be happier. At his special school that he goes to learn and to read, the teacher recommends him for this science experiment which increases his IQ. He does the surgery and then you see him go through life as his IQ goes up and then how people react to him being more intelligent. And it's also written in progress reports. So at the start it's a bit hard to read because it's full of like misspellings and non-punctuation. But as it goes on, he becomes more intelligent and then it gets more coherent. So all these tabs I think are like special plot points, I think. I don't remember, but I set out to tab this one because I knew that this is classic. I think I cried because it's really seeing a slow train wreck once you know what is going to happen. Algernon is the mouse that they first experimented on. So Charlie is the first human experiment. So when things start to happen to Algernon, Charlie knows that it's gonna happen to him and then it's just quite painful. So the reason why I wanted to read this book is really stupid.
You also have more mice living in your desk than any other detective.
Algernon! You guys, Algernon's back!
Get rid of the mouse and get your act together now.
Yes. That's why I read this book. I gave it 5 stars here. This is a book I definitely recommend that like everybody should read at least once. It really teaches empathy. So yes, that is the end. I read 7. Yeah, it makes sense. I said 7 earlier. Why did I not write? Yeah, why did I not write this down? It says 7 books this month. No, not this month. The 7 books I read in April. So yes, we'll read Asian books this month. And also I've been listening to an audiobook. But yes, like, subscribe, comment, and I hope you guys like this video and I will see you